Hey everybody, Alex from SCADA Forge here. In this video we're going to look at alarm components in perspective. Some of this will be familiar if you have watched the vision video. We'll redo it in case folks are not watching the vision side as well. For alarms in perspective or vision, we have two ways we can view alarms. One is an alarm status table and one is an alarm journal table. The alarm status table is basically a real-time view of any active alarms, and the alarm journal is any historical alarms that we have set up. To manage historical alarms, we'll just set this up first before we get into the alarms themselves. You go to your Ignition Gateway webpage, log in, go to Services, and under Alarming, select Journals. And we will click the Create Alarm Journal button. We have a database set up, so we'll use that for our alarm journal. You can also do internal, which will store it into a SQL database file on the gateway, or remote if you want to store those to a remote gateway on a larger system. We'll just use database for now. We will call this alarm journal. I'll leave the description blank. We want it to be enabled so that it writes alarm history. We'll leave query only unchecked because we want it to be able to store events to the table. If we had multiple gateways writing to the same database, you may leave one as the primary gateway that writes all the alarm events to that, and then use other gateways to view data, which is where you would use query only. Our data source, we'll select the SCADA Forge database that we have set up on our gateway. We will just use low as our minimum priority. If you wanted to only store, say, high or critical alarms, you can. We're not going to deal with diagnostic priority alarms here, so we'll just leave low as default. We won't store shelved events. We'll show how that works, but we'll just not show those for now. And we won't show enabled or disabled events, but you can enable and disable alarms if you want to. And this will give you full history tracking of both of those conditions. We'll just leave the event data as default. Data filters, this will allow us to filter by different alarm sources, so different tag providers, different display paths if we want to use that functionality, or if we want to filter by both. We'll just leave those as blank because we don't want to deal with any filtering. We can do enable data pruning that will automatically clear out our alarm history after a period of time. I'll just leave that by default. And under advanced, this allows us to define our table names in the database as well as utilize store and forward. Store and forward is useful if the database connection between the gateway and the database goes down. Ignition will store all of the alarm events locally and push them out to the database once the connection is restored, if that's enabled. And we will just leave that as default for now. And we'll hit Create Alarm Journal. And we'll see that that pops up in the tree here. Next, we'll go to our designer. Under the Ignition 102 folder here, I set up two tags that we'll use for alarms. We have a discrete alarm, which is a Boolean value, so on or off, and an analog alarm that's an integer value. So we can set up value-based alarm conditions. First, we'll go to the discrete alarm. And these are both memory tags just for testing purposes here, so we can control when the alarms show up. So I either double-click on the tag to go to the tag editor, or right-click and edit tags. And then under the categories, select alarms. And you can either double-click here on new alarm or click the plus button. And this will bring up the alarm properties window here. We will give it a name. We'll call it discrete alarm. And I'll just copy and put that in the label here. And since we're not doing anything detailed with the display path, I'll just make that the same as well. We'll just leave it as low priority, manual acknowledgement required, no notes required. And we'll make it equal to 1 for alarm mode. So anytime this tag becomes a value of 1 or true, we'll generate an alarm. And we'll leave deadband and notification settings as is for now. And we'll hit OK. And now we see the alarm configured icon show up on that tag. Next, we'll go to the analog alarm tag. Again, we'll go to the alarm section. We will add, in this case, we'll add a high alarm and a high. So we'll go analog high alarm. We'll copy that into here. We'll make this a high priority. Typically, high would refer to the value, not the priority, even though those are the same here. So if we had, say, a tank level that is filling up, and we want to get alerted when it gets to 90% full, generate an alarm. That's what the high alarm name refers to, and then priority just refers to how critical or important that alarm is to operations. We'll change the mode to be above set point, and we'll make that a value of 90. And we'll leave inclusive as true, meaning if it's 90 or above, we generate the alarm. If we set this to false, that would mean anything only above 90 would be an alarm. And then next we will add an analog high alarm. So this would be if we've bypassed the high alarm because we're now at 95%, we want to generate a critical alarm in this condition. So we'll change the priority to critical, and we'll paste that there. And again, we want to be above set point of 95. And leave everything else as default and hit OK. And now we see that we have the alarm configured icon there. So now we'll come up to our project browser under perspective. We'll create a new view called alarms. Then we will go to our component browser and we'll search alarm, and you'll see we have an alarm status table and an alarm journal table. For this one, we're going to look at the alarm status table. So we'll drag that over to the screen. We'll just make the window a little wider, make this a little bigger. And we'll see all of the various properties we have over here. We have a refresh rate, how often it's going to update. We'll just make that 2 seconds. We can enable the header up top, enable details, enable shelving, acknowledgement, unshelving. Then we can enable the toolbar, so we can change, what's active, what's shelved up here at the top. We can enable filtering, or we can hide that if we want to allow the filter button to be removed. Take off the toggleable filter if we want to have a search bar that shows up there. If we want to filter the results, we can check and uncheck that. Or if we want pre-filters, that gives us these icons here that we can use to control filters. And if we want to be able to configure alarms here, and then we'll have some default shelving times. If this is responsive or not based on the size of the window that we're using. And then we can put in various filters up top here, and we'll see what their status is, and we'll see the status of any shelved alarms. And then we can also do our row styles here that we can set colors and things for rows based on the alarm condition. And then we can do date format and sort orders and show our columns and things here. In this case, we will typically, I would simplify this quite a bit. So we'll make display path false. We will show label. And we'll show source as we generate an alarm, and then we can hide that as well. But this gives you all the columns, and then if you want to reorder these, you can manage what we're doing there pretty easily. So now let's go to play mode. And again, you can right click similar to Vision on the headers here and show or hide columns. And we can also move these around here if you don't want to do that in the properties. Typically, I'm resizing that. Go back out of play. So we'll have label, priority, source, state, and name. So now, if we generate an alarm here, so let's go to our discrete alarms first. We see there's no active alarms currently. We can set that value to 1. And now we see that we have an alarm that has showed up in our status table. We'll see when it came in, what the label is, what the current priority is. The state is active and unacknowledged. We can also see the tag path here and the name of the alarm itself. If you're setting the label and name to the same thing, you can hide one of those here. So let's do that. Let's hide name, since that's at the end. And source path is useful if you're troubleshooting on the back end, but may not be super useful for operators. So we can uncheck that as well. So now we have an active and unacknowledged alarm. So let's say the operator has seen that and dealt with the condition and they want to acknowledge it so it's not showing up active. You would select the alarm here and click acknowledged, and that goes to active and acknowledged. And we can now take that off and we will be cleared and acknowledged. Based on our pre-filters up here, we're showing active and unacknowledged alarms, active acknowledged alarms, and cleared unacknowledged alarms, but we're not showing cleared and acknowledged alarms, which is pretty typical for this type of situation. Because once the alarm has been acknowledged and cleared, we no longer really need to see it on the screen. So now let's go to our analog value. Let's make it a value of 90 to generate the high alarm. So now we see our analog high alarm come in. And if we were to make this 95, we'll see that our high alarm came in as well. So now that we have multiple alarms, we could use the checkbox in the header here to acknowledge multiple alarms. And now they both show as active and acknowledged. And then if we make this 90 again, our high goes away, make that 89, and the high goes away. So that gives us a real-time view of all of our alarms here. If we want to now look at the alarm journal, create an alarm history view, go to perspective components, alarm journal table, and just make the window a little bigger. This looks very similar to the alarm status table. And we'll just make this a faster refresh rate. And we have a lot of the same properties that we had in the alarm status table. Just leave those alone. This also gives us paging ability in case we have a long alarm history that we're looking at. And we can do date range, real time. This will allow us to look at, say, the last 8 hours. We can also change that to historical, and we could tie in a date range picker to our start and end date here to allow us to look at a particular period of time. And similar to vision, we will need to specify the alarm journal that we're looking at. This will just default to journal by using the name property. Since ours is called alarm journal, we'll update that, and that will populate with data based on the alarm journal that we had configured. And we'll see a lot more tags from the vision testing here, or a lot more alarm entries there. And we'll hide source, We'll show label and hide event ID, and we'll scoot label over here. So now this will give us the last 8 hours of alarms. We see we have 27 alarm events there, and we can scroll through and see when they were cleared, acknowledged, so on and so forth. And I believe this is filtering or sorting by event state. If we sort by event time, we'll see exactly what happened when we acknowledged, when it cleared, and when it became active. And this is helpful for troubleshooting process conditions when an alarm comes in, to manage things there. And then this gives you basically all of the same functionality we saw on the vision side to view alarm history. And like we did in the vision video, we can also simplify this a little bit by putting these on the same screen. We'll just put that in front of it. And we can take a checkbox under input here and drag that over. And we can show alarm history. Then we can come to our alarm journal table. Let's make this alarm journal, and we will set our visible property as bound to our checkbox selected property. Hit OK. And we will go to the alarm status table, go to its visible, do an expression because we want to look at the inverse of that property. Checkbox props selected. Okay. Okay. Now this is very common to see on actual projects where you have one alarm screen and a way to toggle between alarm history and alarm real time on the same screen. It just can make it easy for the operators to look at alarm history without having to load up a second screen. And we will also show, if we want to, say, make this 92, if we select that alarm, we can either acknowledge it or we can shelve it. So let's say we're going to shelve it for 5 minutes. Now it does not show up on our active alarms page, but it does show up on our shelved alarms page. What this means is, let's say we have some equipment offline for maintenance, and for whatever reason, it's going to generate alarms throughout the day, and we don't want to be populating the alarm screen with those while it's down for maintenance, because those aren't actually valid alarms from a process perspective. We can shelve those for some period of time, and that will basically prevent the alarms from showing up in the alarm status table. And then we can uncheck that and unshelve it, and it will now show back up in the screen. So typically operators would use that like during maintenance activities, just so that they're not inundated with alarms throughout the day. And we can change this back to 85, and we'll see that we have gone into a cleared and unacknowledged state, meaning the alarm came and went, but it still hasn't been acknowledged. If we then go select that and acknowledge, it will fall off the list. So that covers everything you need to know about viewing alarms in perspective. Thank you for watching.